Hello friends, back again. Thank you for tuning in. This video is all about the history of Monster Hunter Generations. Generations is definitely the coolest idea of any of the Monster Hunter games. They decided to take all of the past games and condense them into one game. So Monster Hunter Generations is really like a greatest hits of all the past Monster Hunter games. Monster Hunter Generations was released in Japan November 28th, 2015, and was later released in North America and Europe July 15, 2016. Let's talk about some of the things they took out or changed from Monster Hunter 4, and then we'll go into things that they added in. First of all, they took out the weapon honing system from Monster Hunter 4U. There is no G rank in general in this game, so there wasn't really a purpose to have weapon honing. There are no guild quests, and there are no apex monsters as well as frenzied monsters. They also took out purple sharpness because, again, this doesn't have G rank. There is also basically no story in this game. They left the story aspect of Monster Hunter to Monster Hunter 4 and 4U, and they kind of went back to the basics of Monster Hunter, where it's less about the story and more about just the monster hunts. On top of that, there aren't really a lot of cutscenes like there were in Monster Hunter 4. There's no ecology videos either. Monster Hunter Generations is less focused on the story, and therefore there were no cutscenes and monster introductions, and instead they just used small monster introductions like a camera panning and showing the monster instead of a full scene to really show off their personality. That being said, the 4 flagship monsters of this game actually did get cutscenes as introductions. Another small thing that is kind of a downside is that this game actually has a worse frame rate and a reduced field of view compared to Monster Hunter 4U. Monster Hunter 4U was 60 frames on the new 3DS, and Monster Hunter Generations is down to 30 frames now on the new 3DS. But regardless, they still look good and are completely playable. Another feature returning from Monster Hunter 4 is the melding pot. You can use Wycademy points as well as Hyper Hunter items to create new talismans. Item sets and equipment sets are a returning feature from Monster Hunter 4, but they're a little bit easier to use this time around, in my opinion. Let's talk about some of the small quality of life changes that we got in Monster Hunter Generations. It's now easier to gather than ever before, and I'm not talking about Prowler mode, which we'll get to, but we can actually gather by holding down the A button, which is so nice. Not only can you go up to a gathering point and just tap A to start gathering from that point, you don't need to cycle over to your pickaxe, for instance, or your bug net. You can just press A, and if you hold it down, it'll just keep gathering until the mining point or the gathering point is completely used up. Ah, perfect. Perfect! Nobody wanted to just keep pressing A anyway. This is one of the best changes, as small as it is. Also, they changed how meals work in this game. You now have to discover your own meals, and you can create a new dish by combining 2 ingredients. So again, this is new to this game, but the more ingredients that you acquire from just playing the game and fulfilling villager requests, then the more dishes you have at your disposal. You combine more ingredients and discover more dishes. One of the more major components of Monster Hunter 4U was mounting, and mounting is back in this game, but it has a few minor tweaks. For the most part, there are more ledges in this game for mounting. The mounting threshold has increased, making it overall just harder to mount in general. Monsters are no longer damaged when attacked from hunters while mounted. Hunter attacks instead contribute to the mount buildup and won't knock down the monster or stop the mount if they get a flinch, for instance. There are no more flinches. Other than Monster Hunter 2, this is actually the first Monster Hunter game that features other Monster Hunter games' villages in this game. In other words, this game has 4 villages, and only one is actually new. The returning villages are Kokoto Village, which appears in Monster Hunter 1 and Monster Hunter Freedom, Poke Village, which is from Monster Hunter Freedom 2 and Unite, and Yukumo Village, which is from Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, a game that we never got in the States. The brand new village in Monster Hunter Generations is Berna Village. Berna was actually based on Switzerland and Austria. Let's move on and discuss the Palaco Facilities. It is quite expansive in this game and replaces the farm overall. In the Palaco Facilities, you have access to a number of different things, including the Palaco Dojo, the Meowster Hunters, and the ranch. You can order items from the Palaco Ranch by sending out Palacos on trading requests. This is essentially the means of duplicating your items in this game. You need more Palacos in this game for things like trading requests, and also for things like the cat minigame, aka the Meowster Hunters. At the Meowster Hunters, you can send some of your Palacos that you have recruited out on a minigame to bring back desired materials. The minigame is done by selecting Palacos and aiming them at the desired materials from the areas that you selected. There is also usually a secret material hidden in the game. Once they're all fired off, they can come back after you have completed a quest with the materials that you requested. The higher the enthusiasm of the cat, the bigger the circle is, and the easier it is for them to land on the goods you're aiming for. After your expedition, your Palaco's enthusiasm decreases dramatically. You'll also have access to hiring more Palacos in the Palaco facility. At the Palaco Dojo, you can train Palacos to learn skills and other moves. Palacos can even teach their support moves and other skills to other cats with lessons. There's also special training to gain even more experience than normal, cat naps to refresh their enthusiasm, and meditation to change what size of monster they focus on. How could we have made it this far in the video without talking about the llamas, aka Mufas? They are basically a new pet designed in this game. Mufi is basically the new Poogie. It's an adorable little baby Mufa. You can pet the Mufa, and the more affection it gets, the more likely you are to get item drops from it. Poogie is still in the game. Poogie is only available at the older villages. Hunters for Hire is also back from Monster Hunter 3U. The more hunter guild cards that you have, the more hunters you can send out, and the more hunters you send out on a single mission, the higher odds you have for success. And speaking of getting guild cards, the only way to get guild cards is to play online, or to play locally with your friends and exchange guild cards. And much like Monster Hunter 4U, this game has a true online experience, just like it was designed for 4U on the 3DS. So not only is there local play, but there is complete online play, which is awesome. And if you know the game well enough, you know that I lied, because there is one other way to get guild cards, and it is the DS's Street Pass function. The Street Pass was a feature on the DS that allows you to automatically interact with other DSs when you're just passing them by. Now, in Monster Hunter, specifically, you can turn the Street Pass function on, and if you pass other hunters by, you will collect their guild card, as well as their Palacos. This is a way that you can trade Palacos with people, and you don't actually lose the Palaco, you just give them the ability to hire your Palaco. Let's talk about the monsters of the game. They had some wild ideas for some monsters in this game. Not only did we get a new type of monsters, which are the deviant monsters, we actually got 4 flagship monsters for this game. They were called the Fated 4 or the Elite 4. And these 4 monsters are the Glavenus, Mizutsune, Gameth, and Astalos. These are the signature monsters of Monster Hunter Generations. After these, there were only a few new monsters introduced in Monster Hunter Generations. Those are the Great Macau, Malfestio, and Nakarkos. Like I said earlier, they introduced a new type of monster, which was deviant monsters. Monsters that are altered and have more powerful forms. All of them have completely new attacks and new attack patterns. They are more aggressive in nature, and they only appear in their exclusive quests, which require specific tickets to participate in. Here are the deviants for Monster Hunter Generations. Crystalbeard Uragon, Deadeye Yingaruga, Dread King Rathalos, Dread Queen Rothian, Drill Tusk Tetsukabra, Hellblade Glavenus, Grimclaw Tigrex, Red Helm Arzuros, Silver Wind Nargacuga, Snow Baron Lagambi, Stone Fist Hermitar, and Thunder Lord Zenogre. Let's move on to the weapons and armor for Monster Hunter Generations. In general, the weapons and armor got a new upgrade experience. When you create a weapon, you can now upgrade it to multiple levels, and depending on the level that that weapon is at, you can either keep upgrading it or upgrade it to an entirely new weapon. Weapons also now show true raw attack values and elemental values instead of bloated values like in previous games, meaning that none of the values are inflated or show how much damage that, sword and shield would do compared to a great sword. Basically, you can see how strong something really is. Armor actually also uses a leveling system for upgrades now. Something worth noting is when you craft or upgrade armor or weapons, there is something left over, which is called scraps. And these scraps are then used to forge Palaco gear. And moving on to probably the biggest change in this game, which is the combat. Let's first start with the new weapon of the game, which was Prowler Mode. In Prowler Mode, you take control of a cat in which you've made or hired. The Prowlers are capable of a variety of different abilities. You'll have to teach or learn these abilities, but once they are learned, you can equip different abilities to your playstyle. Cats also have very special properties about them. They can burrow underground to safely escape battle. They have a much faster time gathering. They have no stamina restrictions, and they can actually resurrect twice before carting. They also don't need cool or hot drinks. They are just fine as they are. And for all the other weapons of the game, we are now introduced with hunting styles. Hunting styles is a mechanic that allows you to change the combos that your weapon uses in exchange for a number of different hunting arts and the way that you fight. Hunting arts is basically adding a spice of anime into Monster Hunter. In other words, each weapon got super flashy attacks. Each weapon has access to multiple attacks that are tied to a buildup. You must do a certain amount of damage before each art is usable. Some take more buildup than others. For example, Guild style is the most familiar fighting style to the older games. You have basically all of the same combos from the old games with maybe a couple limitations, and you also have access to 2 hunter arts. Aerial style allows hunters to jump for the first time. You can jump off monsters, other hunters, and objects like bombs to perform mid-air attacks. The sacrifice is that your ground combos are not quite as lengthy or strong, and you only receive 1 hunter art. Striker style. Although your combos are limited, you get 3 hunter arts, the maximum number. Also, your charge time for the hunter arts is quicker. So although you have more limited combos, the gameplay is focused on hunter arts. Adept style. Adept style allows powerful counterattacks after a successful evade. Although you only get 1 art, you do get a new attack for each weapon after a successful evade, which is usually really strong. I'm not going to go over every weapon change because there were so many in this game. The fact that each weapon has multiple styles and brand new attacks that are now anime and super flashy hunter arts, it's just a lot to go over in one video, but I will highlight some of the changes that went down with Insect Glaive because they are rather large. The insect evolution system was overhauled and is now actually a leveling system. Kinsects actually level up by using food gathered on quests. The food you give them influences the stats that grow. For instance, if you want a speed Kinsect, then you feed it speed jelly. You can now see your Kinsect's stamina as a blue bar on the top left of your screen, and your glaive upgrades independently from your bug. You can still have a bug at level 1 and a fully upgraded staff. The last thing I'll highlight from Monster Hunter Generations is the sheer amount of content that this game had. Just to put it in scale, the number of large monsters this game had is 71, and 52 of those monsters were returning monsters. That's only 4 monsters less than Monster Hunter 4U. And it's like they took every large monster from 3U, at least the number from 3U, and said, yeah, well, let's throw them all in there, plus add some more. An absolutely massive game. Alright, well next time, let's talk about the G-Rank version of this game and make our way on to Monster Hunter World after that. Alright, friends. Thanks again for stopping by.